The massive space station called Concordia Prime floated in the void between stars. It was bigger than any human city, with towers that stretched for miles and docking bays that could hold 1,000 ships. For the first time in human history, their leader was here among the stars, talking with beings from other worlds. President Elena Vasquez stood at the tall windows of the main conference hall, watching alien ships come and go. Some looked like metal insects with too many legs. Others were smooth and round like pearls. A few seemed to be made of living crystal that changed colors as they moved. Each ship carried representatives from different worlds, different species, different ways of thinking about life itself. Elena was 45 years old, with gray hair that she wore pulled back and kind eyes that had seen too much war on Earth. She had been a soldier once, then a diplomat, and now she carried the hopes of 8 billion humans on her shoulders. For 2 years, she had worked to build trust between Earth and the 12 species that made up the Galactic Council. It had not been easy. Many aliens saw humans as violent and primitive. They pointed to Earth's bloody history, the wars that had nearly destroyed the planet before humanity finally reached the stars. Some aliens whispered that humans were too dangerous to join the galactic community. Others said humans were too weak to matter. Elena had proven them wrong through patience and hard work. She learned their languages, studied their cultures, and slowly built friendships. Trade agreements were signed. Scientific knowledge was shared. For the first time in generations, Earth knew peace, and that peace was spreading to the stars. The summit was ending today. 3 days of meetings had produced the Treaty of Concordia, a document that would make Earth a full member of the Galactic Council. It was the greatest achievement in human history. The conference hall was packed with beings from across the galaxy. The Catharians stood 8 feet tall with blue skin and 4 arms. The tiny Vexians looked like floating jellyfish made of light. The proud Altarians wore ceremonial armor that had been polished until it shone like mirrors. In one corner, the Cephirians sat quietly in their hooded robes, their faces hidden in shadow. Elena walked to the speaking platform as hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other organs turned toward her. The translator device at her throat would carry her words to every being in the hall, converting human speech into languages that had evolved on worlds she had never seen. "Friends," she began, and the word echoed in dozens of tongues. 2 years, ago humanity took its first steps into the galaxy. We came as strangers carrying the weight of our violent past. Many of you had good reason to fear us. She paused, looking around the hall. The Altarian ambassador nodded slightly. He had been one of the first to trust her. But you gave us a chance. You taught us that strength does not only come from weapons and war. You showed us that different species can work together, can build something greater than any of us could create alone. Today, we sign not just a treaty, but a promise that humanity will use its strength to protect, not destroy, to build, not tear down. The audience was silent, listening. Even the Zephyrians, who had opposed human membership from the beginning, seemed to be paying attention. "We know there are those who still doubt us," Elena continued. "They say humans are too violent, too unpredictable. They may be right. We are a young species, and we have made terrible mistakes. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We have learned that war brings only pain, and that peace requires courage." She lifted a datapad containing the treaty. "This document represents hope. Hope that our children will grow up in a galaxy where differences are celebrated, not feared. Where problems are solved with words, not weapons. Where no species stands alone against the darkness." In the audience, something moved. A figure in a Zephyrian robe stood up slowly. Other Zephyrians turned to look, surprised. The figure reached into its robes. Elena saw the movement but did not stop speaking. "We pledge to you, our new allies, that humanity will honor this treaty. We will stand with you against any threat. We will share our knowledge, our resources, our friendship, and we ask only that you remember us not for what we were, but for what we choose to become." The Zephyrian figure pulled something from its robes. It was long and thin, crackling with blue energy, an energy blade, illegal in any diplomatic meeting. Security officers started to move, but they were too far away. The assassin was already running toward the platform. Aliens screamed and scattered, but Elena stood still, watching death approach. The energy blade punched through her chest with a sound like breaking glass. The assassin held her up for a moment, making sure everyone could see. "Humanity is a disease," the assassin said, its voice carrying through the hall's speakers. "They will consume everything if we let them live. Better to cut out the cancer, now before it spreads." Elena felt her strength leaving her. Blood ran down her shirt, but she managed to grab the microphone with one shaking hand. Her security chief, Colonel Marcus Chen, reached the platform and caught her as she fell. "Remember," she whispered, her voice somehow still carrying through the hall's speakers. Blood bubbled on her lips, but her eyes were clear. "Remember what we came here to build." The assassin raised its blade again, but Colonel Chen was faster. His plasma pistol fired once, and the assassin crumpled. Other security officers surrounded them, but it was too late. The assassin activated a personal teleporter and vanished in a flash of light. Elena looked up at Colonel Chen. He was an older man with scars on his face from Earth's last war. She had chosen him because he understood both violence and peace. "Marcus," she said softly, tell them we tried." "You did more than try," he said, holding her hand. "You succeeded. The treaty is signed." Elena smiled, even as her breathing became harder. "Then it was worth it. Don't let them think we're weak, but don't let them forget what we came here to build." Those were her last words. President Elena Vasquez, first human representative to the Galactic Council, died on the floor of Concordia Prime with the sounds of alien voices crying out in shock and anger around her. The news spread across the galaxy in minutes. On Earth, 8 billion people watched their leader die on live broadcast. In the space colonies, humans stopped their work and stared at screens in disbelief. On distant ships exploring the galaxy's edge, human crews gathered around communication consoles and wept. The aliens expected humanity to grieve, to protest, maybe to demand justice through proper diplomatic channels. They had seen other species react to such tragedies. There would be angry speeches, economic sanctions, perhaps some military posturing. Then slowly, things would return to normal. They did not understand that they had just killed the one human who truly believed in peace. They did not know that Elena Vasquez had spent her life holding back humanity's darker nature, convincing her people that cooperation was stronger than conquest. With her death, that restraint began to crack, and in the silence that followed, something much older and more dangerous began to wake up. Something that remembered why Earth's history books were written in blood. The funeral took place on Earth, in the same city where Elena Vasquez had been born. Representatives from 11 alien species came to pay their respects. The Zephyrians did not attend. Colonel Marcus Chen stood at attention beside the coffin, wearing his dress uniform for the first time in 20 years. His face showed no emotion, but his hands were clenched into fists. Around him, world leaders and alien diplomats spoke of peace and justice and the need for calm responses. Chen listened to every word and said nothing. The coffin was covered with Earth's flag and the new banner of human space. Millions of people lined the streets to watch the procession. They were quiet, too quiet. The alien visitors noticed this and whispered among themselves. Where were the angry protests? Where were the demands for revenge? The humans just watched and waited. After the funeral, something strange happened. Every human ship in alien space began returning home. Trade convoys changed course without explanation. Diplomatic missions packed up and left. Human colonies that had been buying alien technology suddenly stopped placing orders. Within a week, almost no humans remained in alien territory. Those who did stay were scientists and researchers who had been working on joint projects. They finished their work quickly and politely, then they too departed. The aliens tried to contact Earth, but all communication channels were closed. Emergency frequencies that had always been monitored went silent. Even the trading posts that humans had established in neutral space shut down without warning. Earth had gone dark. In the capital city of New Geneva, Marcus Chen sat in the president's office. He had been elected as emergency war premier by the Global Assembly, a vote that passed without a single objection. Outside his window, the city hummed with activity. Factories that had been making civilian goods were being converted to military production. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels were now constructing something very different. Chen picked up a communication device and spoke to someone the aliens would never see. "Report," he said simply. The voice that answered came from deep underground, from bunkers that officially did not exist. "Operation Ghost Protocol is complete. All agents are in position. We have full intelligence on 12 species, including military capabilities, government structures, and personal information on key leaders." Chen nodded. While Elena had been building peace, he had been preparing for war. Every human diplomat had also been a spy. Every trader had been gathering intelligence. Every tourist had been mapping alien worlds and recording weaknesses. The aliens had welcomed humans with open arms, never realizing that they were inviting military intelligence officers into their most secure facilities. They had shared their technology, their culture, their secrets, thinking that primitive humans could barely understand what they were seeing. They had been wrong. "What about the hegemony?" Chen asked. The hegemony was a militant faction that wanted to remove humans from the galaxy entirely. They had been behind the assassination. Chen was certain of it. The Zephyrian who killed Elena had been working for them. "We have identified 47 key leaders across 9 worlds. We know their locations, their families, their daily routines. We have infiltrated their communication networks. We can move when you give the order." Chen leaned back in his chair. Through his window, he could see construction cranes building something massive on the horizon. The aliens thought humans were primitive, barely capable of interstellar flight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. During the 2 years of diplomacy, human engineers had been studying alien technology. They had taken what was useful and improved on it. They had also been building weapons that no alien species had ever imagined. The door to Chen's office opened and his daughter Sarah walked in. She was 30 years old with her father's sharp eyes and her mother's diplomatic skills. She had been Elena's assistant and translator, and she had been in the hall when the president died. "The assembly wants to know our timeline," Sarah said. Chen looked at her for a long moment. "Are you sure you want to be part of this? Your specialty is diplomacy, not war." Sarah's expression hardened. "Elena taught me that diplomacy only works when both sides want peace. The hegemony has made their position clear. Sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to make war too expensive to continue." Chen smiled grimly. His daughter understood. Elena had been the angel on humanity's shoulder, whispering about cooperation and understanding. But angels could only do so much when dealing with devils. 40 days, he said. "We give them 40 days to find Elena's killer and turn over the hegemony leadership. If they refuse, we remind the galaxy why humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other, instead of reaching for the stars." The 40 days passed slowly. The aliens tried everything to re-establish contact with humanity. They sent ships to the edge of human space but found it defended by automated platforms that politely but firmly turned them away. They attempted to hack human communication networks but found systems that were far more advanced than anything they possessed. Some alien leaders began to worry. The Altarian ambassador, who had been Elena's friend, warned the Galactic Council that they were making a mistake. Humans were not like other species. Their planet had produced warriors and conquerors alongside saints and artists. Pushing them too far might have consequences no one could predict. But the majority of the council believed that humans were simply grieving. They would calm down eventually and return to the negotiating table. After all, what could one primitive species do against the combined might of the galaxy? On the 40th day, the answer came. 3 hegemony worlds lost all communication simultaneously. The planets were called Xerion, Malthas, and Crix Prime. Each had populations in the millions and military bases that were considered impregnable. Scout ships sent to investigate found something impossible. The planets were still there, still habitable, still intact, but they were completely empty. Every hegemony citizen, every soldier, every government official had simply vanished. Buildings stood undamaged. Vehicles sat where they had been parked. Food was still warm in some kitchens, but not a single living being remained. The only sign that anything had happened were small metal plaques placed in the center of each major city. The plaques were made of earth steel and engraved in perfect galactic standard text. Each one said the same thing. For Elena. The galaxy held its breath. How had the humans done it? How had they reached 3 heavily defended worlds without anyone noticing? How had they removed entire populations without firing a shot or destroying a single building? Most importantly, where were the missing people? The Galactic Council called an emergency session. For the first time in 40 days, human ships appeared at the edge of Council space. But they were not the same ships that had left. These vessels were sleek and dark, moving with a grace that suggested technology far beyond what humans had previously shown. Sarah Chen arrived at Concordia Prime as humanity's new ambassador. She walked into the same hall where her father's friend had died, wearing a simple black dress and carrying a small briefcase. The council members stared at her, waiting for explanations, demands, or threats. Instead, she simply took her seat at the human delegation table and waited for them to speak first. The Altarian ambassador finally broke the silence. Where are they? Where are the people from those worlds? Sarah looked around the hall, making eye contact with each alien representative. When she spoke, her voice was calm and professional. They are alive and unharmed. They have been relocated to uninhabited worlds where they can build new lives. They will not be mistreated, but they will not be rescued. Consider it a learning experience. The room erupted in shocked voices. The Vexian delegate's lights flashed angrily. The Catharian representative stood up so quickly that his chair fell over. You cannot simply kidnap entire populations, the Altarian ambassador said. Sarah opened her briefcase and pulled out a datapad. According to our legal analysis, we can. The Galactic Charter allows for defensive actions against hostile forces. The hegemony declared war on humanity when they assassinated our leader. We have responded proportionally. Proportionally? The Catharian delegate's forearms waved in agitation. You made 3 worlds disappear. No, Sarah corrected. We relocated hostile populations to give them time to reconsider their positions. No one was killed, no property was destroyed. By galactic standards, our response has been remarkably gentle. She stood up and suddenly the room felt very small. But this is only the beginning. We know who ordered Elena's death. We know who funded the operation. We know who has been planning humanity's destruction since the day we arrived in this galaxy. Sarah looked directly at the empty Zephyrian seats. We want justice. Real justice, not the political theater that usually passes for accountability in this council. Give us the people responsible for Elena's murder, and this ends. Protect them, and learn what humans are truly capable of. The session ended in chaos, with alien representatives shouting questions that Sarah did not answer. She simply packed her briefcase and walked out, leaving the council to contemplate a universe where humanity was no longer the weakest species in the galaxy. In deep space, invisible human ships waited for orders. On hidden worlds, the Galactic Council had been meeting for 6 hours, and they were no closer to understanding what humanity had become. Representatives from 12 species sat around the circular table, their voices rising in confusion and fear. Admiral Keth of the Altarian fleet spread his 4 hands on the table. His blue skin had turned pale, and his usually calm demeanor was cracking. 3 more worlds went dark last night. Hegemony strongholds on Vega 7, Titan's Rest, and New Zerion. Same pattern. No violence, no destruction, just empty. The Vexian delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, pulsed with nervous light. The populations? Gone. Vanished. Like the others. Admiral Keth pulled up holographic displays showing abandoned cities. Streets with no people. Vehicles sitting empty. Food still cooking in kitchens where families had been eating breakfast. 6 worlds now. Almost 20 million hegemony citizens relocated to unknown locations. The Catharian representative, General Voss, stood and began pacing. Her 8 legs clicked nervously on the floor. How are they doing it? Our sensors detect nothing. Our patrol ships report no unusual activity. These humans are moving entire populations without leaving a trace. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat quietly at the human delegation table, watching the aliens panic. She had been here for 3 days, answering their questions with polite patience. Yes, humanity was responsible for the relocations. Yes, the missing populations were alive and unharmed. No, she would not reveal how it was being done or where the people had been taken. The Drakmori delegate, a reptilian being whose species had never lost a war, hissed in frustration. We demand to know what technology you are using. The Galactic Charter requires all member species to share military capabilities. Sarah looked up from the datapad she had been reading. The Galactic Charter was written by species who had never encountered humans. Perhaps it needs updating. You cannot rewrite galactic law to suit your purposes, the Altarian admiral said. We are not rewriting anything, Sarah replied calmly. We are simply demonstrating that your laws were written by beings who had very limited imaginations. The room fell silent. Sarah stood and walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display showed the locations of the empty worlds. 6 red dots marked the former hegemony strongholds. You want to know how we did it? She asked. Very well. While President Vasquez was building trust and signing treaties, my father was preparing for the possibility that peace might fail. Every human diplomat, trader, scientist, and tourist in alien space was also gathering intelligence. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. They remembered the humans who had visited their worlds, studied their technology, learned their languages. We mapped your cities, your defenses, your government buildings. We identified key personnel and learned their routines. We studied your technology and improved upon it. Most importantly, we realized that your entire civilization is built on assumptions that no longer apply. Sarah touched the holographic display, and it changed to show a technical schematic. This is a quantum displacement field generator. Our physicists developed it based on Zephyrian teleportation technology, improved with human engineering principles. It can move objects across interstellar distances without using traditional transportation. General Voss stopped pacing. That is impossible. The power requirements alone would drain the energy of a star. Only if you use conventional power sources, Sarah said. We do not. She changed the display again, showing what looked like a small metal disc. This is a 0-point energy extractor. It draws power directly from the quantum vacuum. One device, the size of a dinner plate, can power a city for a century. The Drakmori delegate leaned forward. You are lying. Such technology would take millions of years to develop. Sarah smiled, and for the first time, there was something cold in her expression. You assume that human science follows the same patterns as yours. You spent millions of years slowly improving existing ideas. We spent 10,000 years killing each other with increasingly creative methods. War drives innovation faster than peace. She gestured to the empty chair where the Zephyrian representative should have been sitting. Your hegemony friends thought they could eliminate humanity before we became a threat. They were 100 years too late. The admiral of the Altarian fleet stood up slowly. He had fought in 17 wars and had never retreated from an enemy. Now he was looking at a young human woman and feeling afraid. What do you want? He asked. Justice, Sarah said simply. Elena Vasquez was murdered by a Zephyrian assassin working for the hegemony. We want the person who gave the order, and we want everyone who helped plan and execute the operation. And if we refuse? Sarah walked back to her seat and picked up her datapad. Then we continue our current operations until you change your minds. You cannot hold 20 million people hostage, and the Vexian delegate protested. We are not holding them hostage, Sarah corrected. We have relocated them to worlds where they can build new lives free from the militant ideology that led them to murder a diplomat. They have all the resources they need to survive and thrive. In a few generations, they might even thank us. She pulled up another display showing green, habitable worlds orbiting distant stars. These are the relocation sites. Class M planets with breathable atmospheres, fresh water, and fertile soil. No technology beyond basic tools, no weapons, no communication with the outside galaxy. They will have to work together to survive, regardless of their previous political beliefs. The Catharian general stared at the display. You stripped away their entire civilization. We gave them a chance to build a better one, Sarah replied. Consider it an extended timeout to think about their choices. The Drac Mori delegate's scales turned dark with anger. This is monstrous. You have no right to decide the fate of entire worlds. Sarah's expression did not change, but her voice became harder. The hegemony decided our fate when they put an energy blade through Elena's heart. They wanted to eliminate humanity because they thought we were too dangerous to exist. We are simply proving them right. Admiral Keth sat down heavily. What assurance do we have that you will stop with the hegemony? How do we know you will not target other species? You have our word, Sarah said. Elena believed in cooperation between species. We still honor that belief, but only with those who prove they can be trusted. The hegemony chose violence over diplomacy. They must face the consequences of that choice. She stood and walked toward the door. You have 1 week to deliver the assassination's planners. After that, we will assume that the entire Galactic Council is complicit in Elena's murder, and we will act accordingly. Wait, the Altarian Admiral called. What if some hegemony leaders are willing to surrender? What if they want to make peace? Sarah paused at the door. Then they should have thought of that before they killed the one human who truly believed in peace. She left the chamber, leaving the aliens to stare at empty chairs and consider a universe where humanity was no longer asking for permission. In the days that followed, panic spread through hegemony space. Military commanders who had once boasted about human weakness now barricaded themselves in heavily fortified bunkers. Government officials tried to flee to neutral territory, only to find that their ships were being turned away at every border. The other alien species began quietly expelling hegemony representatives from their territories. Trade agreements were canceled. Military alliances were dissolved. No one wanted to be associated with the faction that had awakened humanity's darker nature. On the 7th day, 3 more hegemony worlds went empty. This time, the human displacement teams left behind more than just metal plaques. They left detailed records of hegemony war crimes, evidence of planned genocides against multiple species, and proof that the assassination had been just the first step in a campaign to eliminate all non-hegemony life from the galaxy. The aliens who read these records realized that humanity had not overreacted. If anything, they had shown remarkable restraint. A more violent species might have simply destroyed the hegemony worlds instead of relocating their populations, but humanity had chosen a different path. They had turned the hegemony's greatest strength, their populations, into their greatest weakness. Millions of citizens who had supported militant expansion were now struggling to survive on primitive worlds, learning that cooperation was more important than conquest. It was a lesson that would take generations to fully understand, but it was a lesson that needed to be learned. As Sarah Chen boarded her ship to return to Earth, she carried with her a message from the Galactic Council. They were ready to negotiate. They wanted to discuss terms for peace, but first they needed to find someone with enough authority to speak for the hegemony. That was proving difficult, since most of the hegemony leadership had mysteriously vanished in the night, leaving behind only empty clothes and those terrible metal plaques. Humanity had kept their word. They were not killing their enemies. They were doing something much more creative and much more terrifying. They were teaching them humility. The hunting began on a Tuesday. Admiral Marcus Chen stood in the command center deep beneath the Swiss mountains, watching displays that showed the positions of every major ship in the galaxy. Red dots marked hegemony vessels. Blue dots showed allied species. Green dots were neutral traders and civilians. What the aliens could not see were the yellow dots. Hundreds of them scattered throughout space, invisible to every sensor array the galaxy possessed. Human ships. Waiting. Sir, reported Colonel Hayes, Chen's intelligence chief. The hegemony leadership has gone into hiding. They've scattered across 47 systems using civilian vessels and false identities. Chen nodded. He had expected this. Show me. The main display zoomed in on a sector near the galactic rim. A passenger liner was highlighted in orange. Hegemony Admiral Krenov is aboard this ship, disguised as a grain merchant. He's heading for Nexus Station in neutral space. Another ship appeared on screen. General Thax is on a medical transport claiming to be a patient with rare blood disease. Commander Vale is hiding on a mining vessel in the asteroid fields. Chen studied the display. 47 ships carrying the beings responsible for Elena's death. They thought they were safe, scattered across thousands of light years. Hidden among millions of civilians. They were wrong. Begin Operation Nightfall, Chen ordered. Across the galaxy, human ships that had been invisible suddenly became very visible indeed. The passenger liner carrying Admiral Krenov found itself surrounded by sleek black vessels that had appeared from nowhere. The medical transport was gently but firmly stopped by a human frigate. Mining ships in the asteroid fields discovered that they were not alone, but the humans did not attack. Instead, they sent polite messages requesting permission to board and conduct inspections. When permission was denied, they sent the messages again. They were very patient. On Nexus Station, the station commander received an urgent communication from the passenger liner that had just arrived. This is Captain Maris of the liner Peaceful Journey. We are being surrounded by unknown vessels. They claim to be human, but our sensors cannot detect them until they decloak right next to us. The station commander, a pragmatic Altarian named Torque, pulled up his sensor readings. Empty space. No ships within 50 million kilometers. Captain, our sensors show nothing in your area. I am looking directly at them, Captain Maris shouted. 5 ships, black hull, no identifying marks. They are requesting permission to board. Torque frowned and activated the station's most powerful scanners. Still nothing. Either the human captain was having hallucinations, or the humans had developed technology that made their ships completely invisible to detection. Given recent events, Torque suspected the latter. Captain, do they appear hostile? No, sir. They are maintaining safe distance and using diplomatic channels. But they say they will wait as long as necessary for permission to board. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human. Ships appeared near their targets and simply waited. They made no threats, fired no weapons, and showed no aggression. They just sat there, patient as death, surrounding vessels that carried fleeing hegemony leaders. The aliens quickly discovered that running was useless. Human ships could match the speed of anything in the galaxy. Hiding was pointless. Human sensors could find a single being among millions. Fighting was impossible. Human ships seemed to ignore conventional weapons, and their own firepower could disable any vessel without harming the crew. On the mining ship Asteroid Dream, Hegemony Commander Vale watched in horror as a human boarding shuttle attached itself to his ship's airlock. He had 16 soldiers with him, all armed with military-grade weapons. The shuttle held maybe 6 humans. It should have been an easy fight. The airlock opened, and 3 humans stepped aboard. They wore simple black uniforms with no visible weapons. One was a woman who looked like she was barely 20 years old. Another was an older man with gray hair. The third was a giant of a man who had to duck to fit through the doorway. "Good morning," the young woman said politely. "I am Lieutenant Chen, Human Space Forces. We are looking for an individual named Commander Vale. We have reason to believe he may be aboard this vessel." The mining ship's captain, an honest trader named Brick, stepped forward nervously. "This is a civilian vessel. We carry no military personnel." Lieutenant Chen smiled. "We understand, Captain. We would simply like to conduct a brief inspection to verify that fact. May we proceed?" Commander Vale watched from behind a bulkhead, sweating inside his disguise as a mining engineer. His soldiers were positioned throughout the ship ready to fight. He activated his communication device to give the attack order. Nothing happened. The device was dead. Lieutenant Chen seemed to notice his confusion. "Oh, we apologize for the communication disruption. Our ships emit a field that interferes with most electronic devices. Safety precaution, you understand." She walked through the ship as if she owned it, scanning each face with casual interest. Behind her, the older man carried a device that hummed softly. The giant simply watched, his hands clasped behind his back. They found Commander Vale in the engineering section, hiding behind a power converter. Lieutenant Chen looked at him for a long moment, then consulted a datapad. Commander Vale, Hegemony Special Operations Division. Wanted for conspiracy in the assassination of President Elena Vasquez. She looked up from the pad. Sir, you need to come with us. Vale drew his plasma pistol and aimed it at her head. His soldiers appeared from hiding places throughout the ship, weapons raised. I am not going anywhere with you, he snarled. Lieutenant Chen looked at the weapon pointed at her face and sighed. Sir, that will not work. Vale pulled the trigger. The pistol made a clicking sound. He tried again. Nothing. The older human held up his humming device. Quantum field disruptor. It makes energy weapons inert within a 50-meter radius. Very useful for peaceful arrests. Vale threw the useless pistol aside and pulled out a metal knife. I will die before I surrender to humans. The giant stepped forward. When he moved, it was faster than Vale's eyes could follow. One moment Vale was holding a knife, the next he was lying on the floor with his arm twisted behind his back. The knife was nowhere to be seen. Sir, Lieutenant Chen said patiently, we really do not want to hurt you. Please do not make this more difficult than necessary. 20 minutes later, Commander Vale was aboard the human shuttle, secured in a restraint field that felt like warm honey but was stronger than titanium. Through the viewport, he watched his soldiers waving goodbye from the mining ship's observation deck. They had not been harmed, just relieved of their weapons and given a stern lecture about choosing better employers. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Hegemony leaders who had thought themselves safe were politely but firmly collected by human teams that seemed to appear from thin air. Some tried to fight. Others tried to run. A few attempted to negotiate. None of it worked. The humans were polite, professional, and absolutely unstoppable. They knew exactly where their targets were hiding, exactly what defenses they faced, and exactly how to overcome any resistance. They moved through the galaxy like ghosts, striking precisely and vanishing without a trace. Within 72 hours, 46 of the 47 hegemony leaders had been captured. The last one, Supreme Admiral Korath, had barricaded himself in a fortress on the hegemony homeworld of Zephyr Prime. The fortress was built into a mountain and defended by energy shields that could stop a planetary bombardment. It had its own power source, its own food production, and enough supplies to last for decades. Korath sat in his command center surrounded by his most loyal guards and declared that humans would never take him alive. He was wrong about that, too. On the fourth day, a message arrived at the fortress. It was from Admiral Marcus Chen himself, speaking from the bridge of a ship that no Zephyrian sensor could detect. Supreme Admiral Korath, Chen said, his voice calm and professional. You ordered the assassination of President Elena Vasquez. Your subordinates have been arrested and are in our custody. Surrender now, and you will be treated with the same dignity you showed her. Korath's response was broadcast across the hegemony communication network. I regret nothing. Humans are a disease that must be eliminated. I would kill your president again if I could. Chen's reply came back immediately. Thank you for that confession. It will be useful at your trial. That night, Supreme Admiral Korath went to sleep in the most secure fortress in hegemony space, surrounded by loyal guards and protected by technology that had never failed. He woke up in a small white room with no windows and no doors. A note on the bedside table read, Good morning, Supreme. Admiral, breakfast will be served shortly. Please dress appropriately for your trial. Guards who checked on Korath the next morning found only empty clothes and a metal plaque that read, For Elena. The fortress was undamaged. The shields were still active. The guards were unharmed. But somehow, impossibly, the Supreme Admiral had vanished from a room that had only one entrance, and that entrance had been watched all night. The message was clear. Nowhere was safe from human justice. No fortress was strong enough. No hiding place secret enough. No guard loyal enough to protect those who had chosen to make an enemy of humanity. The trial was held on Concordia Prime, in the same chamber where Elena Vasquez had died. The Galactic Council had offered to host the proceedings, hoping to maintain some appearance of civilized justice. Admiral Marcus Chen had accepted, but only on his terms. Human ships surrounded the station in a protective formation that no one could see but everyone could feel. The space around Concordia Prime hummed with invisible energy, and every alien who approached felt the weight of watching eyes. Sarah Chen stood at the prosecutor's table, wearing the same simple black dress she had worn to her first diplomatic meeting. Across from her, 47 hegemony leaders sat in restraint fields that looked like clear glass but were stronger than any metal. Supreme Admiral Korath sat in the center, his pale Zephyrian features twisted with defiance. To his left and right, the other conspirators stared at the floor or glared at their captors. None of them had been harmed during their capture, but all of them understood that their old lives were over. The presiding judge was Admiral Chen himself, wearing the dress uniform of the human space forces. He carried no weapon, but everyone in the room knew he was the most dangerous being present. This tribunal is convened to determine guilt and assign punishment for the assassination of President Elena Vasquez, Chen announced. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's speakers, translated into every language in the galaxy. The defendants are charged with conspiracy to commit murder, violation of diplomatic immunity, and crimes against galactic peace. How do you plead? Korath stood up, his chains making no sound. I plead guilty to all charges and I regret nothing. Humanity is a virus that will consume the galaxy if allowed to spread. Elena Vasquez was just the first to die. I only wish I had killed more of you. Chen nodded calmly. Thank you for your honesty. The record will show that the defendant has confessed to all charges and expressed no remorse. He looked at the other prisoners. Do the rest of you share his position? One by one, the hegemony leaders stood and spoke. Some expressed regret. Others remained defiant. A few begged for mercy, but all of them admitted their guilt. The evidence against them was too overwhelming to deny. Sarah Chen presented the case. Methodically, she showed communication records proving the conspiracy. She displayed financial transactions that had funded the assassination. She played recordings of hegemony leaders discussing the human problem and the need for a final solution. The aliens in the gallery listened in horror as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. The assassination had been just the beginning. The hegemony had planned to eliminate all human colonies, destroy Earth itself, and present the galaxy with a fait accompli. When the evidence was finished, Chen stood to deliver judgment. The defendants have been found guilty of all charges. The question now is punishment. He looked directly at Korath. The defendant has requested death. That request is denied. Korath's face twisted with confusion and rage. You cannot deny me an honorable death. I demand the right to die as a warrior. You lost that right when you murdered a diplomat, Chen replied. Warriors fight soldiers. You killed a woman who came in peace, carrying nothing but hope for a better future. You will live with the consequences of that choice. He activated a holographic display showing a single star system at the edge of the galaxy. This is your new home. A single world orbiting a dying star. No other planets, no asteroid belts, no resources except what exists on the surface. You will be transported there along with your followers. All 47 of you will share this world. No technology beyond basic tools. No weapons. No communication with the outside galaxy. You will have enough supplies to survive the first year. After that, you must work together or perish separately. The gallery erupted in shocked voices. Exile to a dying world was considered one of the cruelest punishments in galactic law. Sarah, Chen stood and addressed the court. The defendants may choose an alternative punishment. Any who wish may volunteer for immediate execution instead of exile. The chamber fell silent. Death was final, but exile offered the possibility of eventual redemption. The choice revealed character in ways that nothing else could. Korath was the first to speak. I choose death. I will not live as your prisoner on some forgotten world. 14 others made the same choice. They were led away to face human justice, which turned out to be a single injection that caused them to fall asleep and never wake up. It was more mercy than they had shown Elena. The remaining 32 chose exile. They were taken away to begin new lives on a world where cooperation was the only path to survival. But the trials were not over. The galaxy held its breath as Chen announced the next phase of judgment. The conspiracy required more than just hegemony leadership. It required support, funding, and safe haven from other species. This tribunal will now address the complicity of those who aided the assassins. What followed was 3 days of revelations that shook the galaxy to its core. Human intelligence had penetrated every major government, every military organization, every trading consortium. They presented evidence of bribes paid, weapons provided, and intelligence shared with the hegemony. 12. Species had aided the conspiracy in various ways. Some had provided money. Others had shared military intelligence. A few had offered to hide hegemony leaders after the assassination. All of them now faced judgment. Chen's verdict was swift and comprehensive. The following species have been found, complicit in the assassination conspiracy: the Drakmori Republic, the Vexian Collective, the Outer Rim Trading Alliance, and 9 others. Effective immediately, these species are barred from all human territory. Their diplomatic missions are expelled. All trade agreements are canceled. Any ship flying under their flags will be turned away from human space. This embargo will continue until such time as these species demonstrate genuine remorse and make appropriate reparations. The Drakmori delegate leaped to his feet. You cannot embargo half the galaxy. Our economies are interconnected. This will cause chaos. Chen looked at him with cold eyes. You should have considered that before you helped murder our president. The session was interrupted by an urgent communication. A young human officer entered the chamber and whispered something to Chen. His expression grew even more serious. I have just received word that a hegemony remnant force has taken control of Nexus Station. They are holding 3 million civilians hostage and demanding the release of all prisoners. The aliens in the gallery turned to each other in panic. Nexus Station was the largest trading hub in the galaxy, home to beings from dozens of species. Chen activated the communication system. This is Admiral Chen. You have 10 minutes to surrender. The response came back immediately, broadcast to the entire chamber. We have 3 million hostages and enough explosives to destroy the station. Release our leaders or watch millions die. Sarah Chen stepped forward and handed her father a data pad. He read it quickly and nodded. Your ultimatum is rejected, Chen announced. You have chosen to threaten innocent civilians. You will face the consequences. In the chamber, aliens watched the main display showing Nexus Station. The massive structure rotated slowly in space, its docking bays crowded with civilian ships. Somewhere inside, desperate hegemony soldiers held weapons to the heads of innocent beings. For exactly 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the station's lights flickered. When they came back on, every hegemony soldier aboard was gone. 3 million hostages found themselves suddenly free, staring at empty uniforms and metal plaques that read, "For Elena." The explosives were gone too, disarmed and removed without anyone noticing. Station security found the devices in a neat pile in the main cargo bay, along with a note explaining how to dispose of them safely. The hegemony remnant had simply vanished, as completely as if they had never existed. The aliens in the gallery stared at the display in stunned silence. Then slowly they began to understand what they were really seeing. This was not just advanced technology. This was power beyond their comprehension, wielded with surgical precision by a species that had learned to make war into an art form. Chen stood and addressed the chamber. The hegemony threat has been eliminated. Justice has been served. The trials are concluded. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every alien representative. From this day forward, humanity will take its place as a full member of the Galactic Council, but we will not be the junior partner that Elena envisioned. We have learned that peace requires strength, and strength requires the will to use it. The galaxy will be peaceful, not because everyone chooses peace, but because everyone understands the cost of war. Those who threaten innocent beings will face human justice. Those who attack diplomats will face human wrath. Those who choose cooperation will find no better allies in the galaxy. He gestured to Sarah, who stepped forward. Ambassador Chen will represent humanity's interests going forward. She has full authority to speak for our species. I suggest you listen carefully to what she has to say. Sarah took her father's place at the podium. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 8 billion humans and the promise of technologies that could reshape reality. Elena Vasquez believed in a galaxy where different species could work together in peace. Her dream is not dead, but it will be built on new,